People have probably logged on already. So again, thanks again for everybody for taking the time out of your day. I know this is a little later in the afternoon, so hopefully we can stay on point and doesn't cut into any family time. Obviously, everybody's here to why does cybersecurity matter more than ever during COVID-19. If you've been following the latest cybersecurity news, you know that phishing attacks and data breaches have only continued to grow in both size and sophistication. However, you may not be aware of that small to medium-sized business like yours are the most targeted. Today, we'll be analyzing how your business credentials end up for sale on the dark web and what you can do to monitor, detect, and prevent your data from winding up in the wrong hands. So with that, I'm going to announce the panelists today. Our first panelist is Alex Pirani. He's the CEO and president of Consys Group. Alex purchased Consys Group in September of 2013. He has continued to grow the team since then. Having a service technician background, many of our clients first met Alex during his on-site visits. He is now focused on offering customers the best experience possible and always on the hunt for technology, new technology, and added services to continue to make Consys Group the managed IT service leader in Southwestern Ontario. We have partnered with Dark Web ID with Katie Wallace and Will Bishop. Katie thrives on helping partners think outside the box when it comes to sales and marketing initiatives. With a passion for helping people, her goal is to align partners' vision with the platforms and services capabilities. She has successfully served as a range of MSPs, including SMBs and large organizations. Will has a deep understanding of the managed service provider space and is able to assist partners to form strategies to have success when going to market. Will is passionate about helping managed service providers have success and is able to do that by sharing his experiences, overcoming the same challenges and objections that they face on a daily basis. So thank you for everybody that's on this call, and I'll hand it over to Alex to take it from here.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm glad you guys made it. We know your time is really valuable, and we really appreciate you being here. I really want to say thanks to Katie and Will also for helping us present today. I'm going to go to the next slide here, Ems, and I'm going to kind of get started just so we're cognizant of everybody's time and respecting that. So Consys Group has been in business almost for 18 years. We have over 300 small businesses and medium-sized businesses. We have over 200 years of industry experience across all of our team members, and we manage more than 2,500 endpoint end users. So we provide support services, dedicated help desk, tiered support packages, on-site remote IT services, disaster recovery, ongoing maintenance, managed services, infrastructure monitoring. We also do a lot of around professional services. We do a lot of IT consulting. We do project planning. We help small businesses specifically. We're really bringing enterprise level protection down to the small business world. That's our whole goal, is to make it affordable to have all the protection in the world that you actually need, because small business gets neglected all the time. So we appreciate you being here, and we're going to go over the next one. I'm going to start talking a little bit about cybersecurity, and basically cybersecurity works two ways. There's cyber crimes and there's cybersecurity. Cybersecurity also encompasses what we like to say a cyber policy. So there are a lot of components to protecting a network and protecting a small business, and sometimes a lot of those things can be prohibitively expensive, and a lot of small businesses don't realize they have to protect their infrastructure in certain ways. So that's where we come in and help. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the dark web and how it affects small businesses, and kind of what happens when criminals try to get your information, or what do they do with that information, and why do they want that information. So crimes that target computer networks and devices, they can target unauthorized access, they can reduce availability, aka they can lock down your data so they can prevent you from usage, or they can steal that information as well. Cybersecurity is two-pronged. It's external, so people stealing it from outside, and sometimes there is internal fraud, and there's also that portion of cybersecurity that we're not talking about today. Crimes that use computer networks to advance their criminal activities or illegitimate activities is why we're kind of talking about this today. So I want to get you thinking a little bit. Before COVID hit, and it's been crazy, 50% of internet users received at least one phishing email per day. 97% can't identify what a phishing email is, or because they're so advanced and they look so real now, it's very, very difficult to tell a phishing email from real or fake these days, especially if colleagues have had their email hacked, and now they're using the criminals are using their accounts to send against you and everybody in the contact list. So it's getting increasingly difficult to combat this. 1 in 25 users unknowingly click on a link, and 54% of security breaches are caused by human error. Today, the average cost of a data breach can reach upwards of $150K. There's a lot of liability components that people don't realize, especially in healthcare. And then pre-COVID, 75% of businesses, small businesses, were not adequately prepared to deal with cyber threats, let alone what we're dealing with now. There's a huge spike in people trying to take advantage of work from home models and take advantage of government support and faking what that looks like. Hey, you've been approved for this small business loan, and like on top of everything else, you're worried about your business. Now you have to deal with links that are trying to take your money instead of provide you money. So it's a little bit scary out there today. If you want to go to the next slide for me. Why small businesses are prime targets? Because small businesses don't have the budgets to spend to protect their infrastructure. And that's really what we are trying to do is give small businesses the ability to have small budgets, but get enterprise level support. A lot of small businesses owners wear many hats. There's not necessarily a high IT skill level, and sometimes there's no IT skill level, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, when you are running a business, it can really affect your business continuity. We see certain things: aging equipment, unpatched devices. People are still running Windows 7 even though it's discontinued. All of these things can contribute to people accessing your small business network, affecting your business continuity. And the biggest thing that we run into is small business owners don't think that it's going to happen to them. We see that if I can't see it, it's not going to happen to me. However, once you're on the internet, you have an IP address. Literally everybody who's a cybercrime, whether it's a state or an individual or an organization, you are their neighbor. You have an IP address, you're easy to access, and basically Russia, China, anywhere like that is literally your next door neighbor, and most people don't understand literally the Star Wars level attacks that go on that you can't see. So small businesses believe their data is not valuable. It's not true. It's ransomable. You can basically put it out on the dark web for sale, and then you can also use that as leverage to small businesses to pay up, or I'm going to give out your information. And small business education lags far behind enterprise users typically, and we're aiming to change that and educate clients a little bit and their staff. So not only do you have to have the business owner have an understanding of what's happening, but the staff also really need to understand how to mitigate threats. It's as easy as like, hey, if you're unsure about that email, maybe I'm going to check with my IT provider. Like it's really almost that simple at certain points, but training people to understand that rather than just, oh, I'm going to click on this, open it, get infected. 58% of victims are categorized as small business. So it's a huge, huge target. Ultra small businesses are too small. Large enterprise businesses, they spend a lot of money. They're not an ideal target, but right in the middle are small businesses, and they're starting to realize that they're easy to get to. They typically don't spend money. They don't patch their equipment. They have out-of-date equipment. So it's our job to help educate everybody at minimum a few things to keep your equipment up to date. Cybercrime is a fairly large thing. Awareness training, and this is basic education, can literally reduce the risks by up to 75%. 80% of hacking-related breaches are leveraged through stolen passwords or weak guessable passwords. So you've heard this over and over again, but this still happens all the time. 85% of businesses with less than 1,000 employees have been hacked, and most don't even know it. So that's a little bit terrifying. People will sit on back-end email servers and monitor what's happening inside an email address that's been compromised and start to wait until they can see opportunity, and then they will go after that. Also internally, servers can be repurposed for other things, attacks on other areas. They can take your data, all sorts of fun things. 4.2 billion email account credentials and 85 million stolen personal information records, driver's license, SIN numbers, date of birth. You can hear time after time about people getting breached, large companies losing their information, and the stuff showing up on the dark web, because that's what people do, is they'll take that information and sell it, and it's a prime target for identity theft. That's probably one of the #1 things. Data stolen from businesses does end up typically on the dark web, or it's being ransomed and held against you where they're going to notify somebody else. Criminals like to buy it. It's for they get fake identity documents, and the information for sale on the dark web is up to 20 times more likely to come from an entity whose breach wasn't reported. So that's actually kind of scary too. Most of the information is unreported. Here is an example of a Cyberthreat real-time map, and this is kind of when people are like, hey, it's not going to happen to me. In real time, you can see what attacks are happening across different computers. And this is just one threat map from Bitdefender. There's 40 threat maps. There's all sorts of different ones, and there are actually real-time attacks going on every second of every day, and most people have no idea, and small businesses are a prime target of most of these attacks. I'm going to turn it over to Katie and Will. They are from, they're going to basically be talking a little bit about dark web. And we've partnered with them to try to bring some education to our clients, not only a little bit of education and training on dark web, but also products that can monitor a business domain. For example, if I was monitoring consysgroup.com, anything that gets tagged with Consys Group on the dark web, we would get notified about, and we'd be able to, okay, great, we found Jim had this, he signed up for MyFitnessPal, and it was breached, and that was information's on the web. How does that affect us? Because he used his business account. And so because he's using his business email, now it affects the business. So we would be notified if that happened, and we would be able to go and change his password. We can also monitor personal email addresses as well, Gmail accounts, Hotmail accounts, whatever account you have, Rogers email accounts, they can also be monitored as well. So if something does get breached, you would get notified that something happened. So I'm going to turn it over to basically Katie and Will, and I'm going to have them go through a whole big section, a little bit of education, and I hope you find this valuable. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Will.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pick up here, Alex. Thank you for that introduction. That was a great bit of education about what the problem is and kind of what the risks are. And we'll start with this slide here, and it really does speak to the problem that this is a business. It's ran like a business. It's ran in markets that have reviews. They get vendor ratings, feedbacks about their communication, what kind of quality do they have with their products, things like that. So it is very much a business, and as the slide indicates there, the annual effect of that in regards to damages caused just by next year. And we're getting ready to be in month 5 of this year, but we're heading rapidly towards an estimated $6 trillion annually, and that's trillions with a T. not a B. So that's a large number of damage that are caused here by these actors in this space. And again, just to kind of springboard off what Alex was saying, make no mistake that the small business owner is a target. He's a prime target because typically, without resources and someone like Alex and Ryan to assist, they don't have the ability or the know-how to put the protections in place that they need. So it's super critical. I would tell you here, the slide kind of speaks to it, sophisticated and well-funded. I always like to tell people it's advanced, it's persistent, and at this point in the game, it's automated. A lot of the tools that they're using to come after folks are automated. There's not a lot of manual effort. It's not, the image you may think of a guy sitting in the basement wearing a hoodie typing away. That's not the case. It's not efficient. They do automate the process. So if you'll advance the slide for me there, Ryan, what I'd like to do, what I'd like to start with, and I'm going to try to present without moving my hands around a lot, but we'll see how that goes. It's not likely to occur, but so overlook me if you see all this motion. But I'd like to just kind of help you understand and continue on the theme that Alex has already established of, let's give you some education. When we say dark web, a lot of times when I talk to people, they don't know what that means, or they have just kind of a partial idea of what we're talking about. And so what we like to do is just take a minute. Let's explain kind of where dark web fits in the overall picture of the internet as a whole. And we'll kind of transfer some knowledge back over. And once you have that knowledge and we kind of talk through some more tools here, you can start to understand what the problem is, what the protections are, and what we can see, what we can put in place to where we can kind of put this over on somebody else's plate, not worry about it so much, and get back to things that actually are activities that generate revenue, things you went into business to do. So as you think about the internet, you've seen this illustration of an iceberg here tons and tons of times, and it's a great representation of what we want to talk about here today. As we look at that piece that's up out of the water there, that's surface web. And so when we say surface web, we're talking about the open internet. This is the internet that we know. We can go to Google, we can go to Safari, whatever your flavor of choice is for a search engine, and we can put terms in and we can search and we can find information. So I had to search for a piece for my lawnmower earlier this week, and this is the internet, or the portion of the internet that I was using to do that. So we all know this one. It's indexed, it's searchable, you can find all kinds of good stuff here. But as you think about it in regards to its percentage of the whole, it represents somewhere between 4 and 6% of the entire content that's on the whole internet. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big. As we kind of break down below the surface of the water there in our picture, we enter what we call deep web. And deep web's a little different, and there's different types of materials here. Our scale on our drawing there, our illustration, is off a little bit because deep web actually represents about 90% of some of the upper end estimates that I've seen of the entire content that's on the internet. So this is a large portion of what's going on. And as you can see there in the slide, it's not indexed, it's not searchable, so it doesn't behave like the surface web that we know. What's happening down here is this is information that we don't necessarily want somebody to be able to put in a search term and find. So good examples of information you would find here would include your bank account information. You've got to go to a portal, put in a username, put in a password, then you can access the information. Maybe your movie queue in Netflix, so we're keeping up with where you are, watching whatever your shows are. Your medical records, a lot of dental and medical offices now want you to go log into their portal, get the results for your labs, see what your notes were on your visit, things like that. So all kinds of information, and we could sit here and make a list of examples as long as your leg, but this is where the bulk of the content is. So that's kind of the takeaway here. As we go on down to the bottom of the iceberg there, this is the area we want to talk about, and what we're kind of trying to frame up is this is the dark web. So dark web's a little different. The content down here is accessible, but you're going to have some special tools in place. And these are tools that they're free. You can go download them off the internet, and you can get some guides that'll show you how to get here. But you do have to have a special browser. You're going to want a VPN connection, so special connections, special browsers, things like that. What you're gaining in this space is a measure of anonymity. So we don't know who you are. We don't know what you're doing, where you've been, things like that. So you think about the space and everybody says, oh, it's got dark right there in the title. This must be the bad part. But there are some legitimate uses and some need for this space. If you think about people that are in oppressed areas of the world where they can't express themselves, they don't have free speech. They don't have access to information that's not gone through maybe a government filter as to what's approved and what's disapproved. They can come into this space. There's versions of Facebook that exist here. There's versions of newspapers that exist here to serve those people. Somebody that maybe is in a whistleblower situation, they need to drop off some information. All the major news outlets have drop boxes here. And, those are just a couple of examples. There's other things we could point out, but the bigger point I want to make here is you're anonymous and there are some legitimate uses. So the space needs to exist. But like most things in this world, when you've got anonymity and no regulation, somebody's going to show up and they've got ideas about how they can do things that are going to make money, or maybe they're just not quite legal. And that's the case here. So some things that we'll see down here that are not so noble as free speech would include, firearm sales, prescription medications, illegal medications, fake IDs, human trafficking is an extreme example. So lots of things going on down here that not very savory. And this is the space where the market exists for people when they've stolen credentials. So, we were talking about stolen credentials just a little bit earlier. This is where people that have those that they either want to share them with their friends that want to go do some malicious things. There are people in here that are in community, they share those, and there's people down here that are selling that information as well. So wouldn't it be great? That's the question. Wouldn't it be great if we had some visibility into that space? And like Alex was alluding to, we had some kind of warning or some kind of visibility into when our credentials are for sale there, so we could get into a position where we are reactively proactive. It's already been stolen. We're going to react to that and try to get into the middle of the attack loop and take actions to change that, change passwords, and have some better practices around those password management. So that's where the space is, and a little bit about kind of how it exists and why it exists. Ryan, if you'll advance the slide, I've actually got a screenshot here of, this is a site that one of our developers shared with me that we like to put in the presentation. What's happening here is you've got someone that's, they've got a site up and they're selling credit cards. And it's not the case that they're sending you a spreadsheet and saying, hey, here's some credit card numbers. They're actually pressing the card for you. They'll send it to you. They've read both stripes of the magnet. They have both rails, so they've got all the information. They know what the 4-digit pins are. They know what the daily cash advance limits are. They know what the spend limits are. They know everything about this card. So when they send it to you, it works and functions just like the card until something triggers and somebody finds out about it. But one of the things I want to point out here too is if it's impossible to read the script up there, but we've got part of it broken out. This kind of ties back to the slide where we were talking about this as a business. There's verbiage in here where they're talking about their customer service. Thank you for letting us serve you. There's language in here about guaranteeing you'll be satisfied. If not, we'll refund money. We'll get you new product. We're going to make sure you're happy. We want you to come back again, because they're competing. It's an illegal business, but it's a business and they have competition. So they're vying for your loyalty to their product. And so I like to show that as just kind of an example of what we were talking about earlier in regards to this truly being a business that is trying to compete with other businesses. So with that little bit of information, I'm going to hand things over to Katie, and Katie's going to talk a little bit about what's the process? How does your information end up here? What are the tools or the techniques that people use to harvest your information and then bring it out here and try to sell it?
Absolutely. And thank you, Will. I want to thank you, Alex and Ryan, for having us being a part of your webinar here today. And like Will mentioned, I'm here to continue that educational theme. How does your data get on the dark web in the first place? I know we've mentioned phishing a little bit earlier on in the webinar, but that's where I want to focus things on right now. Phishing attacks are a persistent threat to any business. A staggering 90% of data breaches involve some sort of phishing. Phishing is an attempt to acquire personal information, such as usernames, passwords, or even financial information via impersonation or spoofing through email. We've likely all received phishing emails, whether we've realized it or not. And currently, with all that's going on, cybercriminals are now sending emails claiming to be legitimate organizations with information about the coronavirus that they want to share with you. The emails are messages that ask you to open an attachment and see the latest statistic. Now, if you open that email and click on the statistic, that link you're going to click on, it's going to be embedded with malicious software that's going to be added to your device that you've opened that email on. Then those malicious devices, they're going to steal your information. The next thing that I want to talk about is malvertising. Malvertisements may not be a term that you've heard before, but you've likely run across one on the internet and haven't realized it. Malvertisements may look like regular advertisements, but they contain a code that attacks a visitor system directly, or it could redirect you to another browser or a malicious website. I mean, think about this. Anytime you Google a service, Will had to Google how to fix his lawnmower earlier this week, but when you Google a service like that or you click on a website, how many sponsored ads that you then receive moving forward on any website that you visit? Some of those ads that you may have received could have been malvertisements. Malvertisement campaigns are really attractive to cyber criminals because they can easily be spread across a large number of legitimate websites, making the end user think it's okay to click on those ads, maybe if they want to revisit a site or an article that they had previously looked at. A great example of a malvertisement actually affected the New York Times, a huge news publication. They were hosting a banner ad for up to 24 hours, and this banner ad actually attempted to social engineer people into installing a rogue antivirus tool. Now, this wasn't an antivirus tool, it was actually a virus itself, and that virus then scraped people's computers for sensitive information that could have been resold on the dark web. The next style of attack that I want to focus on are watering hole styles of attack. And these are truly targeted. A watering hole attack consists of injecting malicious code and/or a virus into a public web page that folks may pull up when Googling an item or a service. Then, that criminal targets sites that folks visit the most, and then they scrape for information for the folks that have visited those websites. These styles of attacks are very common with folks within the financial or legal sector that house a lot of sensitive data. The last style of attack that I want to talk about today on this webinar would be web attacks and data breaches. If you watch your local or even your national news, you may have heard several stories of data breaches within the last year. They're truly on the rise. Just to mention a few, Capital One, Equifax, and even Facebook and Instagram are examples of companies who went through data breaches just in the last year. A data breach is an incident that exposes confidential or protected information. A data breach might involve the loss or theft of your social security number, banking or credit details, personal health information, and even emails and passwords. As we move forward in the presentation here, I want to talk about what this all means and what it means when a cyber criminal gets their hands on your information. Remember hearing about the WannaCry virus that went around a few years ago? It was targeting computers running on the Microsoft Windows operating system, and then the cyber criminal, once injecting the WannaCry virus, then encrypted any data and demanded some sort of ransomware payment to get that information back. Unfortunately, many attacks don't have to be as notorious as a WannaCry virus to take a company down. Once hit with ransomware, it can take days, weeks, or even months to get your data back, whether you shell out the money to pay for your information or not. Cybercriminals will also use exposed information like email addresses and passwords to unlock any accounts that you may have created. Think about how many logins that you have for different accounts, whether it's websites or applications, and all that sensitive data that could live behind the login. Something I want to talk about now, think of this. Something that most folks are guilty of is reusing passwords amongst multiple accounts. If you do reuse passwords amongst multiple logins, I would highly recommend changing your passwords to make them unique. Without changing your password, if a service or a website or application that you log into gets breached, a cyber criminal now has access to all of the accounts that you've used that same password on. Think about all that information that a cyber criminal now has their hands on, and now they're selling it on the dark web to whoever wants to purchase it. With this all being said, most cyber attacks do not have a happy ending. Ransomware and data breaches are a huge security problem for any size organization. Unfortunately, like Will mentioned, all data has a price tag on the dark web. As we move forward, I want to talk about, what this means for companies. Companies today have the right to keep your customers' information secure. And a lot of times that's an expectation. I know I was personally affected by the Capital One data breach. And in my head, I sat there and I thought, I use my Capital One credit card for a lot of services, and I trusted this organization. Is it time that I have to switch my credit card provider? I really hate to do that, but my information wound up on the dark web, and now I have to spend the time to go through and change all of my account information. So when personal information is compromised, a lot of customers, like myself, they feel violated. So ultimately, a company's failure to protect a customer's private information, it's going to live in the mind of that customer who is affected, but we also live in the age of the internet now. So maybe your local news will pick up on that story, or somebody may post about it on social media, and that truly does bruise a company's reputation indefinitely. For small to medium-sized businesses, these data breaches can not only bruise your reputation, but they can also be financially draining. Data breaches, on average, cost the company 7 days worth of downtime. Outside of the downtime that it's causing you, and maybe the ransomware payment that you have to make to get your data back from that cyber criminal, loss of private data can also lead to massive fines by authorities based on the data privacy laws in your area. Such fines, coupled with downtime and the bruising of your reputation and folks defaulting from your business, can truly be detrimental to your organization. With that being said, and painting a picture of all of this information, I want to pass things back over to Alex and Ryan and let them take it from here.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's super informative. I learned some stuff there too, actually, so that was really great. I also think the impacts of a cyber attack should be known, because typically it is a liability to a business if you are breached or your data is leaked. Your client information is vulnerable to breaches. The cost of client credit monitoring in our area, especially, system information can become inaccessible. The inability to take payments and process transactions, potential costs involved once you are breached. Typically, when we encounter a breach with Consys Group, whether we're taking over a client, oftentimes we will onboard a client that has been breached, and they will be in a bad spot. And a lot of companies will go ahead and just be like, hey, we're going to just try to clean and remove any viruses from the machine that's been infected. But we realize that they leave backdoors, they leave all sorts of hidden code. So for example, a server that does get breached, you have to wipe out and reload from scratch no matter what, because oftentimes the cyber criminals will leave leftover stuff that will backdoor and come back and get you again. So the potential cost to restore and repair systems, and obviously reputational damage and customer dissatisfaction. Email is probably the #1 way of getting these delivery for malware. We highly recommend you have a professional service. Office 365 is our favorite. G Suite comes in a close second. If you can prevent a lot of the attachments, if you can filter those attachments before they even hit your office, that's usually one of the best ways as a preventative way. There are advanced features in Office 365 and G Suite that can do anti-fraud. They can do high-level detection, all sorts of things. We highly recommend that you have Office 365 for your business. And if you don't, I really, really suggest that you have that somewhere in place. I'm going to let Katie and Will just kind of explain a little bit about phishing and how it works. This is actually a really great example, and it's got a whole bunch of different points to it. So I'll let you guys run through this slide for us.
Sorry, I got ahead of myself and forgot to unmute there. I'll be glad to speak to this for a minute. And I wanted to do, I've got a, my news feed in the morning is probably a lot nerdier than I probably should talk about, but I saw some stuff come in earlier this week that last week Google had put out some numbers about how much they're blocking right now in terms of phishing emails and spam. That all revolves around COVID-19 as the subject matter. So, kind of the point I would make there is the bad guys never miss an opportunity. And, the global pandemic, hey, that's an opportunity. Let's do something with that. People are a little scared, but let's exploit. And I wanted to share this just to kind of highlight the extent of the problem. I pulled this up and I verified it back to Google, but Google's telling us at the end of last week, they're blocking about 18 million malware and phishing emails every day right now that all revolve around COVID-19 as the subject matter. And that's in addition to an extra 240 million related daily spams. So lots and lots of email coming in there. And of course, the highlight there was they're blocking a lot of that. That's how much they're blocking. It's very difficult for them to keep up. The other figure I pulled out of this article was that 63% of the documents that are malicious that are sent to Gmail are technically just a little bit different. So they have to stay alert to keep up with that. And the point I'm trying to make is they're not blocking all of it. They're definitely not. They're doing the best job they can, and there's other things to put in place. So that last line of defense is the person that's there in front of the keyboard. And what we're gonna talk through with this is just, hey, pay attention to what's coming in on your emails. What do you see there? And this slide is a great representation of kind of some of the things you can keep a heads up and kind of keep your eye peeled for. And I hope you've had a chance to take a look at it and read through it there a little bit while I've been kind of setting the stage here for you in terms of the magnitude of the problem. But fake email addresses, the address we're showing here is very close to what the actual organization's address is, but it's off by one letter. So keep an eye peeled there on who this is coming from. If you're just seeing the name displayed, hover over for a minute, take a look and see what pops up. Attachments that you're not expecting, poor grammar, immediacy. Hey, I need you to jump on this now. Take care of this right now. Requests that are out of the ordinary. Like we had one that circulated internally where our CEO wasn't doing it. It was obviously a fake email, but he was asking us to run out and then get some gift cards because he needed us to jump on a project real quick. Well, I don't hear from Kevin ever asking me for money, so that that looks a little weird. So things that are out of the ordinary like that. Links. When you see links, hover over the link. Where's the link taking you? The example we show here is it's to an IP address, and then it's got that bad spelling of the company name in it again. So lots of different things that you can kind of keep your eye peeled for there.
Just to interject there, we've
Yes.
seen a number of people actually go out and buy Google Play cards and all sorts of things, believing that it came from the CEO to a finance. So it does happen. We've actually seen many times now the letters being either swapped or looking similar. So this happens to our world right now. So this is a real thing that happens all the time.
Absolutely, it absolutely is. Ryan, if you'll flip the slide over for me there, we'll talk to the next one here. And what we're talking about here, this is just a reinforcement of what we were talking about graphically on that first slide, and we're talking through the different categories here of these are the things to check. We had the examples on the first slide, and then kind of the bullet points here. And the point I would make here, I love this copy, is the CDC is recommending right now, take 20 seconds and wash your hands. Keep your hands clean, and that's how long it takes to do the job correctly and make sure you're protecting yourself. Take that same 20 seconds and look at your emails. Let's make sure they're clean too. Let's go through these things. Let's familiarize ourselves with what we're looking for, and then let's just take a few seconds out of our day. It's not going to add up to a lot, and make sure that we're dealing with an email that's clean as well. And it can really go a long way in really strengthening up the security posture for the organization. So with that, I'll hand the presentation back over to you, Ryan.
That's great. So we've obviously set the stage of all the issues, and as earlier said, 70% of the attacks out there can really be reduced by education. And we offer phishing simulation and security awareness training kind of paired together to allow, and in this slide it kind of talks to this. We obviously detect, we'll send out phishing simulations, and we'll kind of track where employees will be along the process, and we'll be able to send out reports as well to CEOs, business owners, and it's all about training the end user. It's an online program. We can customize it. We can send them out as different times in order to, it's not the first of every month you're going to get a phishing campaign, and we can spread it out throughout there. That's just a little bit of how we help our clients. A lot of our clients have actually taken this opportunity during some downtime to look for these, especially with the uptick of the phishing emails that are happening in the cybersecurity. So we've obviously, use the leading dark web monitoring platform. We scan the dark web for exposed information. We can actually do personal email addresses or domains. So we do a little bit of both. So combines AI and human intelligence to identify and analyze and proactively monitor. I think that's the key. It's the proactive, and I think that everybody's hit it home here today is about that proactive look versus the reactive, as it's very costly. We've obviously partnered with Dark Web ID and now offer the monitoring services, and it just kind of highlights a little bit about what the platform engines and where we go into. Not to go into full detail, just based on some timing here. And we go into botnets, criminal chat rooms, peer-to-peer networks, bulletin boards, illegal black market sites. We obviously looking for emails, passwords, dates of birth, social insurance, home addresses, driver's license. So we basically scour the dark web for you so that no one else has to. Here's just an example of what that report looks like. We're never going to show the full characteristics of passwords, but we'll show where the date was found. We're actually seeing reports all the way back to 2013 and further, but that's just an example. Where the email, the password, the source it came from. So this is something I'll get to as well, that we'll be able to offer everybody on this call, just a free dark web scan. So Alex?
Yeah, so a couple things you can do to prepare yourself. This is where Consys can help you. We do conduct free assessments. We do a comprehensive threat and risk analysis of your business. We help you create an inventory of your assets. We help you understand, what's Windows 7, what's Windows 10, when is something expiring, when do you need to maintain that software. We help you develop security policies for your business. And we're now branching out to education and training because we think it's so important. We can give you literally the best antivirus platform, the most secure platform ever. However, human error social engineering can completely bypass everything we put in. You're only as safe as your credentials. So if you have the strongest password in the whole world and you get tricked into giving it up, you instantly bypass all protections. And we also recommend that when you have a third-party contractor, some software that you use on a regular basis, whether it's like a Salesforce or whether it's Dentrix or dental practice management software, you must have a formal written agreement in place to make sure that they're not making changes and hurting your network as well. I'm going to move to the next slide. Having a basic IT cybersecurity policy in place, we really, really, really recommend that you have two-factor authentication turned on when possible, if you can do it. Security can be inconvenient sometimes, so when you have to have a special app on your phone and punch in a code to basically say, hey, it's me, I'm changing this password. It can seem like a pain in the butt, but it's also probably one of the best ways to protect yourself. Good passwords, two-factor authentication, using device for protected work purposes devices that have antivirus, that have patch management, that are up to date. And we also recommend while you're working from home that you have a separate guest network that segregates you from the rest of your family and other devices that are on your network, because oftentimes we're finding that viruses are spread through the network at home, which has absolutely no protection, is usually a residential router, sometimes provided by your internet provider, and they're not honestly that great. So I just there's a couple things here that I recommend doing, but if you want more details, we're here to help you. This is small business support, and during COVID especially, we are here to support other small businesses and know that there's no silly question. If you're at all concerned, just shoot us an email, ask us, call us. We will help you for sure.
Yeah,
I'll pass that back over to Ryan.
Yeah, that's great. I think just on the basis of time, I have some questions here, so I'm going to get to that in like 2 seconds for everybody. I know Tim, I think we just answered your own questions, so that's great. But just how we can help, and I know Alex just touched on a little bit of that. So everybody on the call today, will get the recording of this webinar that you can refer back to. We'll also can provide, if you're interested, and I'll give you our email. We offer a free dark web monitoring scan at no cost, and we also offer a free IT assessment. In the support of small businesses as well, if you could give us a Google review on how your thoughts on this webinar, that would be very helpful. And as well, I can send that link to you. So just to touch on free assessments, and again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but this is just give an example of the detail that we take as we go into what an IT assessment looks like for anything from 1 user to 250 users. So we go into about 10 different areas to give you a full IT assessment and what your security risks are out there. So our next webinar is going to be on next-gen advanced firewalls. So we're partnering with Fortinet. I'll send out details as well of for everybody on this list, so how you can sign up to that. And with that, I'll just get to some questions here, guys, if we can. So Richard, what do you think of the free malware and antivirus programs for home computers?
Free stuff is garbage. I can't tell you how bad the free stuff is these days. I usually recommend that you go with, for home use, either Bitdefender, ESET is a really good one. I recommend those two for home. Sophos antivirus is also really excellent. If you need any of those things, let us know. We can help you out. But freeware, malware Bytes free is a great one-time scan, but you need something ongoing. And then also we're seeing antivirus moving into an artificially intelligent next-gen state. So there's a few, they're quite a bit more expensive. I recommend those for businesses over home use, but for home, ESET, Bitdefender, and Sophos are really great, and they're worth the money. So you can usually find them on sale. You can buy 2 years at a time and save a bit of money. I would go with that all day over anything free.
Yeah, great. Just to recircle Tim's, I'm not sure if we did answer it, but maybe you can just touch on it, Alex. What is your opinion on password managers, and do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, Dashlane is fantastic. I highly recommend that one. There's a ton of them. Even if you go into your app store, you can find a whole bunch of password managers. I personally like to use a lockdown version of OneNote. That way I don't have to pay for them, and it's on my phone. But I use two-factor authentication to get in there, and then once I have my list of passwords, it's again encrypted and locked down from there. But stuff like Dashlane, fantastic. I typically recommend a paid service because the free ones usually have advertising. There's so many problems with the free stuff these days. So it is worth doing it, and if not, you can always write it down in a book because nobody can hack your book.
I can answer this next one for Paul here. What areas, locations do you cover for our services? So we cover anything a 2-hour radius of London. So Sarnia, Simcoe, Kincardine, all the way closer to Toronto. If it's anything remotely, we can pretty much do anywhere, but hopefully that answers your question. But if you want some more details, Paul, please reach out to me and I'll definitely happily discuss that with you. How often should you change your passwords?
Every 6 months, I would say at least, if you can do that. Or it's complexity. So you need to punch a password in to a password generator, and there's password testing websites that you can also check out to see how hard it is to crack. So you can have some 6-letter passwords that are extremely hard to guess only because of the combinations that are used. So it's important to pick a strong password, but there's actually criteria around picking a solid password as well. There's actually even a recommendation that you shouldn't ever change your password, but I completely disagree with that. I think it is worth changing them every once in a while. The biggest key is what Katie recommended was using a unique password for each site. And that's where you really need a password manager, or you need to record them somewhere, because most people end up using the same one over and over and over again, or a variation, like you'll just add the next year, you'll use 2018, 2019, 2020 at the end, and it's just so easy because criminals automatically know that you're going to try to do that. So numbers at the end, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, exclamation signs, pound signs, dollar signs at the end of a password. Cyber criminals understand that you're going to do that, and it's all built into their automatic algorithms. So they're terrible to use. Password generating websites, how strong is my password? If you Google that, that's usually a good way to start.
Great. The last question I have here, if you think you were breached, what should you do?
You should call us right away, and we usually can go through there. It depends on what industry you're in. There are, and actually, depending on some law firms have breaching hotlines available to kind of guide you through what you should do from a legal standpoint, depending on the severity. Breaches can range from ransomware to my email was hacked. So it really depends on the severity, but you really, really need to reach out to an IT provider to get you started and position the right, immediately change passwords is the #1 thing to do in those scenarios. So if your email was breached, change your email password. If your server was breached, it's honestly best to shut it down and then reach out to somebody so no additional damage can be done. If you realize that it's breached, data could be siphoned off. Data could be, it could be encrypting as you speak. So it's best to get to deal with that right away, because most people don't really even know that they've been breached until it's too late.
Great. Last question here, unless there's more after, but how bad is it if you're still running Windows 7? Does it
Really
open,
really
open
bad.
up for more
Change
than
to
Windows
10 as soon as you can.
I agree.
Because Windows 7 is no longer patched, and cyber criminals understand that. You are a lot of the code, the malicious code, takes advantage of those vulnerabilities, and we just see it all the time. Windows 7 just gets destroyed, and if you have Windows XP, it's 10 times worse. But now that Windows 7 is sticking around, most people are like, oh, I don't want to spend the money to upgrade it. I can leave it. Nothing's going to happen to me. However, it just takes one attachment with one malicious code, one drive-by infected link that you click on, and you have no protection because you're not patched. Microsoft is abandoning Windows 7. It's abandoned. So you cannot rely on Windows 7 at all.
That's great. So if there's no other questions, I want to, again, thank everybody to join the call today. And I'll follow up through email just to give you a free dark web scan. Feel free to reach out to me, sales@consysgroup.com for other information. But thanks again, and look forward to the next webinar. Okay.
Katie,
Thanks.
Really want to appreciate you guys coming here. And
Absolutely.
I want to thank everybody, all of our participants, everybody who came in. We appreciate your time, and I hope you stay safe during COVID. And, I hope that business gets better for everybody all around. If we can help you in any way, let us know. We're happy to help.
Yep. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.